Hang on, it might help if I actually set the cameras up. There we go. Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 22nd of March, 2026. Got to say, what a lovely weekend it has been. I don't know about you, but it has been glorious weather here, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Been doing lots of gardening, as I'm sure many of you have. Been down the allotment, out in the kitchen garden, pricking on plants, tidying things up. It's been really lovely. And I, of course, am lucky enough to sort of say, well, I don't work Fridays. Well, I shouldn't work Fridays. I often do. But I actually had Friday off not working, and it was just so lovely. Now, coming up today, we are going to be talking about homemade plant foods. And this comes from the fact that I'm hearing in the news a lot at the moment that farmers particularly are going to be suffering because of what's going on in Iran. The cost of food is going to go up because the cost of feeds and fertilizers are going to go up. Now, you know me, I don't like being negative. I don't like scaring people, but it did get me thinking, are homemade plant feeds really any good? So I'm going to go through anybody that has submitted so far. So the first question I want to ask you, put your hands up if you make any of your own plant feeds or fertilizers. Put your hands up if you make your own feeds and fertilizers. First of all, Adrian is out there saying hi, Richard and all. Then Rob is there saying good evening all. Hope all is well. We've got Kate. Good evening, Veg Army. We have got Rob saying good evening. Nathan, the Allotted Chef. Good evening all. Good evening to you. Turbo Stream saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Hargrave, evening all. Hope you've had a great week. I'm just about to board the Eurostar, so might have to catch up later. He's going international. We've got Jenny. Hello, everyone. I hope you are well. Have had some sunshine. Indeed, we have. What have we got? Digwell is there saying, Marlo Alefi Kwangaba Munja. I can never pronounce it. Welcome, fellow gardeners in Tongan. He's a wealth of knowledge. He must have studied a lot of languages in his time to know all these. Nathan says, what a glorious weekend it's been. Indeed, it has. Indeed, it has. I want more weekends like this, I'll be honest. We have got Stuart Jackson. Evening, Richard and the Veg Army. Hope we are all well and all been loving the weather. Good evening to you. What have we got? Just skipping through when there's a conversation going on. What have we got? What have we got? Oh. We've got Gary. Good evening, everyone from Family and I. Good evening to you. We've got Toby Clark. Evening, Veg Legends. Good evening to you. Leafy Keith. Good evening, Richard. Good evening to you. Good evening from Rob as well. Good evening to you. Anna Jones. Good evening, gardeners. Good evening to you. We've got Turbo Stream. Turn chilly this evening over in Birmingham. I've said that. Redraft, best time to plant out cucamelons, middle of May, depending on where you are. I would say. I don't know where you are in the world, but if you're in the UK, middle of May to plant out. What have we got? The prices of fertilizers rocket when Russia invaded Ukraine. They did, and they're going to go up again, as I understand it. They're going to get very expensive, so it's something to keep an eye on. Stuart has put his hand up. Anna has put her hand up. We have got, yes, it's a mess gun. Hello to you. Hello there, everyone. Hello to you. Jenny says, I do sometimes make nettle soup, but it can smell. Plants love it, though. I tend to use and chop and drop more than a feed. Fair enough. Ballysian, hi all. Good evening to you. Stuart says, yes, I make at home and school. A lot of chef has put their hands up. We have got, yes, it's a mess. I save my bones and make my own bone meal. Now, that's interesting. How do you do that? How do you make your own bone meal? Tell me more. Turbo Stream says, I tried comfrey tea one year, but the bucket got tucked in a corner and I forgot about it, so I haven't done it again. And Leafy Keith, wormweed from the wormweed is a good all-round fertilizer. Any excuse to pop prices up, says Robert as well. So yeah, any excuse to pop prices up. I think it is kind of true. There is stuff going on. We are very lucky in this country that we are relatively safe, but that doesn't mean we're not vulnerable to what's going on in the rest of the world. So we are looking at homemade fertilizers, and I have to admit, I do get given a lot of feeds and fertilizers, so I probably don't make as much of my own homemade fertilizer as I probably should. That doesn't mean that I don't use any. So one of the easiest ones that I do make is worm wee, which has already been mentioned. I've got a wormery in my garden that we fill up with our food waste, our vegetable food waste, and the worms in there, they eat it all down and they excrete this liquid, and it makes a fantastic feed. It does need to be used up quite quickly because, well, basically we produce so much of it, it is very, very quick to get used. But it is a very, very easy one for anybody to make as long as you have a wormery. You could make your own wormery, but it's just waste material. You don't need any special plants. You don't need anything other than a wormery, and you could all go and do it now. Now, I know many of us have probably had, well, I certainly have anyway, new bins come through well, over the last month, ready. I think it's the end of this month it begins. And that includes a food waste bin. And I got our food waste bin the other day and I thought, well, that's going to be very pointless because it's always going to be empty. We don't throw any food waste in the bin because we either eat it all or everything gets composted. So we're laughing really. And worm wee is very, very easy to make. You don't even make it really. It's just produced when you create a wormery, when you have a wormer. So what else have we got? Anna Jones says, easiest nitrogen fertilizer has to be just spread grass clippings. That sounds like a very interesting point. Again, I say this every week. I'm no scientist. I've not tested nitrogen in my soil, but I have spread grass clippings in the past as a mulch, and it has certainly seen some benefits. But I've never really seen if nitrogen has gone up in the soil. So that's interesting. That is very interesting. How could we measure that? I guess by seeing how much growth we get. Just quickly over on Instagram, Linda Moore 306 has joined, and Plantsman Saul has joined. Me old mucker Saul there. Chili Kate says, hi everyone, sorry I'm late, I was doing chores. Idaho says hello to you. Anybody that's joined, we're talking about homemade plant feeds. I want to find out if you're making your own homemade plant feeds and what you make. Yes, it's a mess garden. I boil them, talking about how she makes bone. I boil them and make bone stock first. Excellent. Then boil again for broth. Then let them dry, then powder in a blender. So you really do double boil them. That's a good idea. I mean, we make bone stock whenever we have any meat. We do make a lot of bone stock, so we could make our own bone meal as well. I love that. Love that. Great idea. Stuart says, I tend to use the nettles at this time of year for soup to eat at kitchen, but after spring I will make nettle tea for the garden as well as worm wee and banana tea. Now nettle tea is another good one that I have made in past. I remember when I was at school, one of the teachers said that you could make your own fertilizer out of nettles, so I rushed home that day. I had remember Panda Pops, those little bottles of drink? I had one of those from our school tuck shop during the day. And I brought that bottle back. I washed it out. I stuffed it full of nettles, filled it up with water, and I put it on my bedroom window for weeks upon weeks upon weeks, just to try and make some of this lovely fertilizer. And it worked. It made a brilliant green liquid. It smelt absolutely awful, but I did feed my cacti at the time with it, and it seemed to do them the world of good. Now, I was down on the allotment on yesterday, and I had my strimmer out, I was cutting the grass, and I noticed that the nettles are starting to grow quite bad. So it probably is the time that we need to think about how about harvesting those nettles, either to make nettle soup or nettle tea. Um, it's got a lot of thought about it, got a lot to think about it there. Turbo Stream says, I tend to dress with my own compost as it's once a year top up. Other than that, I use blood, fish and bone and pelleted chicken manure. So compost is another good one, actually, that we can make ourselves. I mean, who here doesn't make compost? Who here doesn't have a compost heap full of those fantastic nutrients and minerals, plant organic matter? And I try and make a lot of compost, as much compost as I possibly can. It is absolutely necessary. Over on Instagram, Saul says, evening, Richard. I used to have a bokashi bin. The liquid that came off that I used to put in my compost bin, as I thought that would be good for the garden. Never used it on plants like. So I used to have a bokashi. I used to do bokashi as well. And I was told the liquid was very good. It also a very good cleaner, wasn't it? A pipe cleaner, they suggested. Yeah. Again, type of wormweed, I guess, but bokashi. I don't do bokashi anymore because it just felt an awkward cycle. I don't know about you guys, but has anybody done bokashi as well? And how did you get on with it? Digwell says it's mainly nitrogen-based products like urea and ammonium nitrate that will have gone up by 40 to 50%. But that is quite a significant amount. And again, it's going to push the cost of food up. Now, I'm going to come back to the fact that I will say I'm no scientist. I don't know what's going on in my soil. There are test kits for testing things like nitrogen and other stuff that we need in the soil, but nitrogen is very important to the development of plants, of course. And I can't remember where I was going with that. I've completely forgotten my train of thought, so I'll come back to me when I think of it again. What have we got? Turbo Stream says, don't mention bins. Birmingham bin men have not been out for 12 months now, just extended till September. Wow. Is this, I'm still no bin men. No bin men at all. Jenny says, hello, Saul. Hope you are well. Stuart says, I will be trying to make comfrey feed this year, but never made it before. So any advice would be great. Thank you, team. Now, comfrey, again, this is something I've noticed this weekend particularly is growing like mad down on the allotment. Again, one of those plants I don't think unless you have an allotment, you probably have never heard of comfrey. It's a very allotment based plant because it is so invasive, but it is a fantastic feed. The plant itself is a dynamic accumulator, and what I mean by that is the roots go down quite deep and they absorb all the nutrients and bring it up into leaves. So when we cut down those leaves and we add it to a compost heaps or to make a feed or fertilizer out of it, those nutrients then end up in our feeds or fertilizer. And there's two ways that I have made comfrey feed before. First of all is I just take a bucket and stuff it full of comfrey, actually three ways. Stuff it full of comfrey leaves, fill that bucket up with water. It does need a lid on it, to be honest, because it stinks. Leave it to rot for a bit, and then you've got your fertilizer. You just take a bit of that liquid off, dilute it down, and add it to your plant feeding. The other way that you could use it is that you pot leaves in like a big, alongside your shed, what am I thinking? Like a downpipe, a gutter downpipe with like a sieve on the bottom. So the leaves don't fall through. They just sit on the bottom, and then that as those leaves rot down, they excrete a liquid, and you catch that liquid to use as a fertilizer. It's a much more concentrated fertilizer, that one. The other thing I do with comfrey leaves is I use it as a mulch. I just place those leaves around, particularly my tomato plants, potatoes as well, and just use it as a mulch. And again, like what we just expressed, it feeds the soil as it rots down. Very easy thing to do like that. I've got a lot of comfrey grown on my allotment. The trouble with comfrey is it does have a habit of spreading, and that happens on my allotment. So I'm going to try and battle it this year to keep it down. Digwell says you will need the food waste bin for meats, etc., unless you have a Renkel indoor composter. I have one, and it converts all scraps into proper compost, not just a dehydrator like others. Well, I never throw away any meats, I'll be honest with you. So everything gets eaten in my house except for bones. And it's probably only going to be bones going into my food waste. But somebody has just suggested another way of making bone meal out of chicken bones and what have you. So I might be looking at that. Anna Jones says eggshells for calcium. For eggshells brew. Oh, this is an interesting one. Crush up some eggshells and add to boiling water for a few minutes. Leave for a few days and then strain. Now, I go through a lot of eggshells in my household, partly because we've got chickens. And I have to admit, I tend to just add the eggshells to my wormroom, my compost bin, and then we'll just add that to the soil. They don't really get broken down in the compost bin, if I'm honest, but it's just convenience more than anything. But once they're in the soil, they do get broken down quite easily, and then they hopefully rot down in the soil and add that calcium to the beds. Over on Instagram, Christine BR3M has joined, who is to do with my boss. So got to be on best behavior and not say anything bad about work now. Turbo Stream says, I did top dress my fruit bushes with wood ash today. Wood ash is, wood ash is a good source of potassium. That's a very good point there, Turbo Stream. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that's a type of plant feed, isn't it? Used a lot during World War II. They would save all that wood ash, keep it dry is the key thing, and then sprinkle it around tomatoes and things like that for that potassium. So again, that is a good thing we may have to look at in the future as a way of being more and more self-sufficient. Jenny says, I don't make compost. I used to, but I can't manage it now, which is why she chops and drops. I mean, chop and dropping is just a type of feeding, isn't it? It's feeding the soil particularly just in place. Digwell, why not make the feed from the weeds that are prevalent in your area? I use docks, nettles, dandelions, and any deep-rooted weeds. So what you're saying, Digwell, is you could use anything to make your own feeds and fertilizers. Tell us more. Tell us more. Digwell says, the farmers that practice regenerative gardening are rubbing their hands together. They can sell at the same price, while the chemical farmers will have to increase their prices. Now, this actually really is a very, very good point that Digwell has raised there. Because, yes, these feeds and fertilizer prices are going to affect the food costs more because of farmers who, let's say, aren't organic. I think that's fair to say. But organic food is probably going to become the same price as normal food prices. Normal food always seems a bit wrong, doesn't it? But because of this cost in living, it's going to happen. Christine says, John is listening too and says, hello. Hello, John. Hope you're having a good weekend. Happy birthday for Tuesday. Excuse me. Digwell says, just as Richard is saying now, but using the weeds that are already grown near you and growing the correct nutrients up from down below. Yeah. So any weeds that have deep tap roots can be used to make your own feeds and fertilizers. Comfrey is, I called it a dynamic accumulator because it does search for nutrients low in the soil. But things like dandelion and dock, anything like that, you can make your own feeds and fertilizers in the same way with comfrey, just by putting it into a bucket of water. Of course, it's compost as well. Compost material, which I think is very important. Compost is, I know we don't often think about compost being a feed or fertilizer, but I do believe when we're no-dig gardeners particularly, but when we're adding compost to our beds, we are adding feeds and fertilizers. More so, we're feeding the soil, which I think is very important. And as we know, if you heard on Monday's podcast, that there's a lot of things that feed the soil, and then the plants feed from that soil, so that you can see how much better they grow with that. Kate says seaweed is my favorite feed, but being in Midlands, sadly, no seaweed to make my own. Now, I've got to admit, seaweed is something that I do use quite often. I use it as a mulch as well, particularly around my asparagus. But I live 10 minutes walk from the coast, so I can go and get seaweed whenever I need to walk the dog. To make my own seaweed fertilizer is, again, just sticking it in water and letting it brew. But you could also dry it out and chop and shred that seaweed into a very fine dust. And that's meant to work quite well as an alternative way of adding feed to the soil as well. I've not tried that myself, not dried it out and tried it myself, but it's certainly something we could look at doing. Make comfrey feed just as you make nettle tea. Nettles for veg, comfrey for fruits. Yeah, it's a fair point actually there, that not all feeds are going to help all your plants in the same way because of the nutrients involved. We know tomato feeds is a great example. We often use tomato feeds for fruiting plants because it's high in potassium. I'm trying to think if I got any down near me, but if we don't, comfrey feed makes a good tomato feed. So does wood ash. Nettle I find is good for young plants. Nettle tea, very good. Richard says food bin. No thanks. Somebody's against the food bin. What have we got? Stuart says, thank you. I'm planning on forest school lessons after Easter. I'm trying to teach gardening as cheap as possible, as budgets are getting smaller every year. Budgets are getting smaller. The cost of living is never going to go away. It's just going to get more and more expensive. And, you know, I've said this before, when the cost of living gets more and more expensive, the thing we should be focusing our energies on is eating quality food. But generally, that's the thing people cut back on. People tend to cut back on quality food and want to spend more on the luxury, shall we say, from my experience anyway. Toby Stream says you can add wood ash to the compost heap too. You can. It helps sweeten it, but you've got to be careful not to add too much wood ash to the compost heap, because it can become quite acidic and cause issues to your compost heap. So in small doses is what I would say there, but wood ash is a good thing. Now, Digwat says, do be careful with eggshells as they are calcium rich. A plant can only take up so much calcium and magnesium. If it has too much of one, then it cannot take up the other. Magnesium deficiency is common. Now, that is, again, a very good point. I'm trying to think of an example of magnesium deficiency, which I'm hoping somebody's going to pipe in and tell me what the signs of magnesium deficiency is. But calcium deficiency, we see that often in our tomatoes as well. Oh, here we go. Spotty leaves, sick plants. Yeah, there we go. There we go. How do you know that's not? How do you know if that's a magnesium deficiency or just a sick plant? Tell us that. Tell us that. Anna Jones says, we cover the soil under our fruit trees with pond sludge once a year, and it seems to work very well as a fertilizer. Interesting. Interesting. I've heard if you keep fish, on that note, I've heard if you keep fish and you clean your fish out, that water is going to be very full of nutrients as well, which makes up for a very good feed and fertilizer to use on your plants. I wouldn't use it on indoor plants, though, because it's probably quite smelly. But yeah, if you keep fish, so that would make sense about pond sludge as well. Jenny says, if you harvest nettles, please check for ladybirds and butterflies, eggs and caterpillars. Yeah. Yeah, I did see, funny enough, yesterday on the allotment, there was a couple of ladybirds on the nettles when I was trying to cut them down. So I avoided that area until those had gone away. Right, so Plants Man Soul says, magnesium deficiency, yellow leaves with green veins. Thank you very much for that. That's a good sign. That's how you can tell if you've got a magnesium deficiency or not. Same with dandelions at this time of year. Do you know why the lobster blush? Because the seaweed. Oh, there's always one. There's always one. This was another question I was going to ask. Which feed is best for fruit, veg slash fruit, etc.? That's a very difficult question to answer in all. Excuse me, Stuart. So nitrogen loving crops, so any crops that you're growing for foliage, I guess you would say, they would really benefit from nettle teas or feeds that are high in nitrogen, so nettles, things like that. For fruiting, and just like how we treat our young plants as well, for fruiting plants, it's going to be comfrey as a good source of potassium. But as a good answer for an all-rounder, that's a difficult one. I guess wormweed would be a good wormery juice would be a good one for all-round fertilizer. What's anyone's answers on that? What have we got? Turbo String says we get the normal bin empty, but the recycling and green waste has been collected in over 12 months in Birmingham. So glad there are council elections soon. Nicholas joined evening Richard and all turned quite chilly after a few days of lovely sunshine. Had rain again. No, we're not going to tarnish this weather with having rain. We want to stay with this warm weather. What have we got? What have we got going on? I've caught up on the comments. I have caught up on the comments. That's a miracle. Right, this feels like a good opportunity to cut away to a video. And what I've got this week is a video from Turbo Stream with his plot tour at the spring equinox. So we'll go play that and then we'll come back.
Yeah. So this is most of the changes from kind of midsummer onwards this year. I put these beds in. So I've got 6 beds just on this little square. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one's got onions. That middle one has got garlic. And then as we go around, this one has got, was ready for brassicas. That had leeks in just until last week. And then I've got some seed beds ready, warming the soil up. I'm not quite sure to planting them all yet. This one is a bit of a dumping ground for various bits of wood, which I'm drying out. It's a beautiful morning here though. Quite pleased with the grass actually. I sowed some grass seed. Really to make it easier to maintain, that's what I wanted to do. Really pleased with this. It'll make it a lot easier. This is the square above. It was mostly flowers actually, and then a bit of wasteland. So last year I grew parsnips. What else did I grow? Some beans and stuff. This is a bit of a blank canvas, this bed. I've got a few leeks straggling on, but they're not that good. I'll probably harvest those, but probably those will go for the compost, probably. And then my flower bed and the shed. I'm quite pleased with this hellebore. I brought that from home. And then I've got a few spring flowers, some primroses. And I've got some lupins. Underneath there's a load of hardy geraniums. I told you this up, this has got a bit mad with oxide daisy, so I've had a bit of clear out this spring. And this is the soft fruit area. So we've got a red gooseberry in front. Oh, look at the rhubarb. The rhubarb has gone completely mad this year. I guess it's the wet winter and the warmish spring. And as we go down the line, we've got a black currant, and we've got 2 red currants next to it, and then another gooseberry, and then behind there, in the middle, I've got 2 more black currants which I took from cuttings from the black currants, and some more gooseberries. I think we're going a bit over the top on gooseberries. So I'll probably, in the fullness of time, this line of soft fruit will come out. I'll make maybe another bed here. I've got a bit too much soft fruit. We'll see. Makes a nice jam there. And behind that is the composting area. It's a bit of a mess. And then this is my spare square really. I've got it's divided into 4 squares and this is a bit redundant now. So the plan is to let my neighbour, with that green shed there, let her have some of it. I've noticed there's a lot of wildflowers coming up. So I'm going to possibly leave this area. It was the raspberries, but I've taken them back home. So perhaps I'll divide it off into 2/3 and 1/3 and just let her have kind of this 3/4 of the square. It's a bit of a mess. I made the mistake of mulching it with grass that the council dropped off, and of course it was full of seeds, so it's now full of grass. Having said that, you can see where the bare patches are. Well, I've harvested that grass when I did my grass in there, so it was actually useful. And this is the view from the top half. So that bottom square is a soft fruit. That's me. Quite a nice view in the winter. It's lovely summer, well, spring day, isn't it? Sunday. Nice and quiet. That over there is the park. So we get no traffic at all. We're not allowed to bring cars onto our plots, which, to be honest, I think is a good thing, because it's now about 9:15 and I can't hear a sound. All I can hear is bird song. It's beautiful. Right, that's Turbo Stream's Equinox plot tour.
Why have I done that again? Well, what a lovely plot tour that was as well again. Thank you so much, Turbo Stream, for that. One thing I noticed, your gooseberries, your rhubarb, they are very ahead of mine here on the south coast. So that was quite encouraging, I think. Your rhubarb particularly looked enormous, whereas I'm still waiting. Well, my rhubarb has grown, but it's just not ready for harvesting yet. So lovely, lovely. Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Right, where were we with the comments? This one. So Digwell did say he's going to share a nutrient deficiency chart on the Facebook group. Now, that's great. If anybody not on Facebook, don't worry, I will share it in next week's show. There's some good deficiency charts I found online over the years that do give you a good idea of what you're looking for when your plants are looking a little bit sad and how to treat them. Thank you. I will love to teach the children as well as learning myself. Digwell says 6 beds. Does that make it a dormitory or a tribe? A tribe. You watched the video, Len. What have we got? Amanda says, evening all, hope you are well. I'm feeling very sleepy this evening after 2 days on the plot. Yep, I know how you feel. I've been sleepy all week. Over on Instagram, Mark J8108 has joined. Welcome along. Lovely to see you. What else have we got? Stuart says, great little video. Now I know how behind I am. Nice tidy plot. Thanks for sharing. Lovely, lovely tidy plot, wasn't it? Nice and tidy. And I don't think that's a sign that we're behind. I think it's just a sign that somebody's ahead. What have we got? Nicely organized site there, Turbo. Would the Apache potato go well with a tomahawk steak? You're going to make me hungry. I've eaten my dinner. I've got to be good now. What a nice tidy plot. Nice tour, Turbo Stream. Great video. Nice one, Turbo. No onions. Thank you, Turbo Stream. That was really nice. Now that sounds like an interesting mix. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget, if you do want to send in your own videos, you're more than welcome to. Just send it to me. WeTransfer is usually the easiest way. My email address is richard@theveggrawlpodcast.co.uk. Anyway, back what we got. Actually, the winter onions are okay under the veggie mesh. I agree with you, Amanda. I worked hard outside the last couple of days and a bit sore, but slept very well. I've been sleeping really well this week, really well, got to say. So I'm very, very happy with that. Anyway, back to plant feeds and fertilizers. Now, I think when we talk about plant feeds, one of the things that we often talk about is when we make homemade liquid plant feeds. And one that I'm surprised nobody has mentioned is compost or manure tea. Now, this is another trick that some gardeners would do. And they fill up a sack, like an old pillowcase would be the thing to do, with some homemade compost or a load of manure, and then they pop that into a tub of water, something like an old, what I'm thinking of, water butt. And that then produces, or the sort of liquid feeds out into the water. And then again, like we've discussed with a lot of the liquid feeds, you use it like that. The other advantage of doing this, particularly with compost, is that it also kills off any seeds that might be in that compost. You can still use the compost in your beds afterwards, although there is a loss of nitrogen, I would believe, if you're doing this. Has anybody done any experiments with this method? Has anybody made their own compost tea or manure tea and noticed any difference with the loss of nutrients or what have you after doing it? I've never done it myself. I've never felt the need to make compost tea or manure tea. I've always done it my own way, but I'd love to hear anybody else's thoughts on that. Turbo Stream says, my aim this year is to keep on top of things that hopefully after a couple of years of being behind on things. Keep the videos going. I'm intrigued to see how you get on, and I think you will do it. I do think you would do it. Jenny says, just composting my dinner. Oh, well, I'm having to use my dining table as a potting bench as I can't get to mine due to scaffolding. I've squeezed my plate and it's all gone wrong. Yeah, I know that feeling. I'm often using my kitchen table as somewhere to work with my plants at the moment. Drives Amanda mad, to say the least. But it's a little bit too cold to go out to the shed. Well, it is warming up, so I could probably spend a bit more time out in the shed now. What have we got? Is that your compost tea, Jenny? It works. Right. Andrew says, I'm increasingly becoming more cynical out of all products being sold to us. Always better to make your own, follow recipes of our grandparents. See, I wouldn't say I'm cynical. And I had a really interesting conversation with Eddie from Traditional Garden Growers on Monday's podcast. And one of the things that he does is making sheep's wool pellets that feed the soil. And his sort of story, his discovery with this is that when you talk to older gardeners, like our grandparents, they would say they would put sheep's wool in the soil and it would break down in the soil and they would find it fed the soil really, really quite well. So he looked into this and he developed using these wool pellets to feed the soil. Don't think it works too well with slugs though, but it works really well at feeding the soil. And this is in some ways where what was possibly considered old wives' tales have been used to bring to modern technology, shall we say. There's science behind this old wives' tale that has proven that it works, and pelletizing it has made it much easier for people to be able to get hold of sheep's wool to put into their soil. I don't know about you, but I don't have any sheep in my garden. So turning it into a good source of So I cannot get my words out today. So being able to get sheep's wool for my garden is a no-no. Digwell says, I followed the Lieberg's barrel theory, or Lieberg's law of the medium. A plant's maximum yield is limited by the most deficient nutrients. For example, no point adding more nitrate if the plant needs iron. I agree with that, actually. I actually believe a plant will fundamentally know what it needs better than we do. It will seek out what it needs and probably knows where to seek out the nutrients that it needs better than we do. And this is why I'm a big believer that we feed the soil, we don't feed the plant. And that's one of the things why we add compost every single year to our soil, because we're feeding the soil, we're not feeding the plant. Stuart says, I've used manure in the past, but it's not easy to get it into my veg patch. I have the same problem with manure in general. It's not so easy to get hold of these days. It's getting very, very expensive as well, except for chicken manure. I can get plenty of chicken manure, but horse manure is very difficult to get hold of these days. So we have to really think about what we're using and why. Ido says, I agree with you. Digwell says, not sure why you need compost tea when you have compost to use as a mulch. The nutrients do not increase by putting the compost in water, probably the opposite. That was my thinking as well. That's why I'm asking a question if anybody has done an experiment or has done this method. For me, the compost is a mulch. I'm going to use that as a mulch. Much better than making a compost tea. The only advantage that I can see is there's going to be less seeds in the compost, but I don't know. Sue says, back when I had freshwater fish tank, I used to use the water out of that when I did my water changes on my plants. That contained some good stuff, I'm sure. I've seen some aquaponic systems like that. Yep. Absolutely. Aquaponics, that's the basis of it, isn't it? Using all that fish waste to feed the water, to feed the plants. And there's no reason why, if you do keep fish, why you can't use it in the same way. In fact, you probably would be doing it, aren't you? You're not going to flush that water down the toilet when you're using it in the garden, when you can use it in the garden. Jenny says, I've used organic cow manure and urine. Who would have managed to get urine from a cow? Urine was added to compost base, manure was added to compost and to water to make a feed. Did it work? How well did it work? I've been investigating methods of improving my soil and I've had a bit of epiphany. I'm working on a video for later. Oh, that sounds interesting, doesn't it? Thomas Bloom says that rhubarb patch has had compost top dressing the last couple of years. It's also a new patch after I divided some crowns and replanted there. Interesting indeed. Shall I put the diagram on Facebook? Yes, please do. And I'll get it for next week. Turbo Stream says, be interested to see what you come up with, Andrew. What have we got? I really hope so. As I did right. Any more? Oh, I'm hitting buttons that I shouldn't be hitting. I think we are. I'm doing it again. I think we are hitting it all up. Digwa says, I took the piss out of cow once. She was not happy. Done. I bet she wasn't happy. I bet she wasn't happy at all. But honestly, who goes around collecting urine from a cow? How do they do it? I never know. I did suddenly think of a story I thought I might share with you, but that's not very appropriate thinking about it. So I won't share it with you. Gary's come up with something. Gary says the compost in compost tea will give lots of nutrients to a small area. The tea will give small nutrients to a wide area. The tea will give compost tea. I think you got one of those the wrong way around, but it does make me question, what is the point of compost tea when if you're putting the compost down anyway, it's going to be full of the nutrients that you need anyway. So lots of questions there. I do have lots of questions about that. That's not something I've tried myself. I think I partially have you to thank for this change to attitude to my soil. Turbo Stream says you need to extract the urine. Dig well is better. It's very technical, Richard. Watch and pot a bucket down. You only need one on these wee loads. I'd love to know who's done that, and if more importantly, who decided they were going to do it and see what results they got. I mean, it's got to be a story there, isn't there? There's got to be a story of why somebody decided they thought it was a good idea to collect cows' urine. Now, has anybody got anything else that they make any plant feeds or fertilizers from? There's got to be some. There's got to be something we have missed. We've spoken about comfrey, nettles, general weeds. What else have we? Grass clippings, compost tea. What else? Wormwee, manure tea. Anybody? Have I missed anything? Anybody got any others that you want to add in? Digwell says we had a problem here on a Thames water site where a farm runoff, slurry/urine, was flowing into the fresh water pumping building. Ew, that's not very pleasant. I'm guessing it was treated anyway, but that's not very pleasant at all, is it? But I guess that kind of happens though in many places. In many places, indeed. I'm trying to give you a few minutes now. I think there's going to be a good opportunity to talk about something that I think is very important to do as well. I find that having a feeding routine, a day that we feed our plants each week, is a way to keep up on it. Because what I mean by that is most plants will need feeding every couple of weeks, and it's very easy to forget about feeding our plants. So what I tend to do is every Friday, I call it Feed It Friday. That's the day dedicated to feeding my plants. So I'll go around down on the allotment and just feed my plants that need feeding. Same as here at home, it will be, at the moment, I'm using a lot of seaweed fertilizer because it's good for young plants and good for growing good, strong roots. But eventually we'll head more into the sort of nitrogen-based fertilizers and things like that. If anybody's got any more that they would want to add, then please do. Jenny says, we were at a Hari Krishna organic dairy farm. They collected as all from a cow is worshipped. Well, there you go. Hari Krishna are the ones collecting all this cow urine. I have learned something today. Anna Jones says, recycled cooking water from boiled vegetables, rice and potatoes is a good source of nutrients after it has cooled. Add it to the compost heap and just use it as a liquid feed. That's a good idea. I tend to save that water for making stock, but that is, again, a good idea for the nutrients. What else? Digwell says, luckily, boreholes is a 3 brick high top, so nothing got into the water, but it had just started to sort it. Just sorted just in case. Loads of overtime on that one. Yippee. Water it Wednesday, feed it Friday, soak it Sunday, mulch it Monday. Excellent idea. Margaret says coffee grounds are rich in nutrients, especially nitrogen. Coffee grounds. That's one I hadn't actually mentioned as well. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It needs to be used coffee grounds, not fresh coffee grounds. You know why a plant produces caffeine? It's to stop seeds from germinating. So be mindful that if you're going to use coffee grounds, you have to use used coffee grounds. But yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I also found I used to place coffee grounds. This is in my old house. On the bed when I had filtered coffee. It was smaller beds. The slugs and snails also didn't like coffee grounds, so it was quite good at keeping slugs and snails off my plants as well. Jenny says, good point, Margaret. I add coffee grounds to my jungle patio, plus the slugs don't like them. There you go. What have we got? Weed It Wednesday, Sod It Saturday, Sod It Sunday, isn't it? Coming up with some good ones there. Saul says, has anyone in the group used rock dusts? I've seen people use volcanic dusts being sold up to the mineral content of soils. Now, so has anybody used rock dust? I have got some samples of some rock dust somewhere that have been sent to me. But one thing that I did think of is I was once sent, let me get my words out there. I was once sent brick dust. Now, the idea with brick dust, it was meant to be a bit of a replacement for perlite or vermiculite. And I have to say, I added brick dust to my soil and it did produce some really good results. I haven't used it in a while to see if I've still got it, but brick dust is one that I can say I've used. Brick is, of course, just like a red clay, but it had some really good results on that. Lots of good results. Although Rob says rock dust is a con. How do you know? Have you tested it? Let us know more. Turbo Stream says, I add coffee grounds to the compost heap. It's supposed to accelerate the decomposition. Again, possibly. I have heard that myself, but I've not tried it myself. Digrass says, coffee grounds take nitrogen from the soil to decompose, so use it sparingly. Yeah, brilliant. It is just dust from a quarry. Oh, well, you're saying the people that are selling it are as volcanic dust is just from a quarry. Interesting. As I said, I have got some dusts, rock dusts somewhere. I'm trying to have a look around and see if I can see them that I need to experiment with and see how they got on. But I can say brick dust did work. Digwell, volcanic rock dust. Yes, use it quite often, but the payback is years in coming. Let's face it. How many years does it take for a rock to give up its nutrients? Well, isn't the idea being that the rock is already in a sort of dusty form? Although Anna Jones backs that as well. The trouble with rock dust is that it takes a very, very long time to break down. That could be a good thing, though, isn't it? If we're adding it to our soils when we're trying to look after our soils, it's going to be there for future crops. Have you used it? Have you seen any benefit is the question that I want to ask. I think it is now time, of course, while you think on that. Oh, no, Rob says, a lot of UK, etc., was once a volcano, so it's called volcanic dust. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. So, yeah, interesting. It's just used a interesting name to try and sell it more. Anyway, I'm going to go to this week's cook along. And this week you asked me to create something using onions. By the way, if you are on Instagram, we're coming up to the 1 hour mark. Last week, it cut off at 1 hour for some reason. If that happens, then please do head over to Facebook or YouTube where we are live on there as well. Hopefully it won't happen this week. But anyway, let's go to the video. Okay, so for this week, we are cooking up something using onion. And I decided I'm going to come up with a very quick onion relish. It's been lovely weather this weekend. Barbecues have been going. Onion relish goes great with a barbecue. Let me show you how we get it on. So in a pan I have melted some butter, and all we're going to do is add in 1 chopped onion, and we're just going to heat that on a low heat. We're going to add in some chopped garlic as well, for that matter. We're just going to heat that on a very low heat for about 15 to 20 minutes until it is all nice and soft. Okay, well that is nice and soft onions now. So we're going to add in a tablespoon of brown sugar, demerara sugar preferably. I'm going to stir it as we add it in. And also some cider vinegar. So there's a tablespoon and a half should do it. So not too bad. We then leave that to cook for another 15 minutes, by which point it should be nice and thick. Well, I think this is just about ready. I can tell because if I draw a line in it, it doesn't rush to fill itself back up. So we're going to pour this into a nice pot, just like this one here that I already have. We'll leave it to cool down, and there we go. We've got some lovely, tasty onion chutney. That's what it looks like. Let's see how it tastes. Back in the studio. Indeed, as you can see, we've got a nice big spoonful here from that bowl. Let's see how it tastes. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. Just a simple, quick onion chutney. Easy to make. Might have used a bit too much butter, I would say, but absolutely lovely. Go great on some sausages, goes great on a great number of things. Could have added some chili to add a bit of spice to it, but just a simple onion recipe. Not hard to make at all. Took a while, but that's mostly because, well, it's a chutney. Well, it's a relish. Relishes do take a while, but lovely. Absolutely lovely. I am going to give that 9 out of 10. And the reason it hasn't got a 10 out of 10 is because it's just a little bit on the bland side, but that's because I made it simple, kept it simple this week. So back to the comments. Digwell says, I am using some to try and make some Mazzano tomatoes more authentic. Think Mount Vesuvius, which is where they came from, they have a protected status. Oh, lovely. I have heard that, and I think one of the reasons that Pompeii was so popular is because the ground around that volcano was so fertile and so good for growing food. So, you know, there's something to be said for it. A lot to be said for it. By the way, don't forget, if you've got a cook along for next week, hashtag cook along in the comments. Keep it an eye. I don't think we've had any suggestions yet so far. Digwa says, as much as I hate to agree with you, yep. Stuart says, I only ever put old coffee grounds in my compost bin as we have badgers in the field behind me. The badgers love coffee. They probably love the slugs and snails that get caught on it, actually. Yeah. Digwa says, next time you make it, Richard, try adding a teaspoon of marmalade. You will thank me. I don't have any marmalade in the house thinking about it, but I'll try that next time. I'll get some marmalade in, especially for that. Rob says, thanks, mate. When I used to work in quarries, a lot of people used to come in when the plant was not running to collect the dust at the bottom of the conveyors. Is that to help? Did they take that dust away to their plants? Rob, let us know that. I can just imagine the badgers enjoying an espresso, discussing current events. Indeed, indeed. Tabby Stream says, cook along something interesting with rhubarb. Okay, that's going to go in the list, I think. Let's check it's came up. Yep, it's came up. So we have one there so far. Badgers love mashed potatoes. Indeed, they do. Indeed, they do. They took the dust to sell as rock dust. Okay. And what did they do with rock dust? What was the reason they could sell it? Tell me more. Tell me more. Gary says, sorry, I didn't make sense before. I am only guessing. Is compost tea about taking the nutrients out of the compost and adding it to the water so you can use the water to spread nutrients widely? Basically, yes. Yes, I think that was the general idea. It also, as I said, I think if your compost bin doesn't get very hot and there's seeds in there, they're going to germinate when you spread the compost about. So I think it was also to stop stop that, but the nutrients leach into the water and therefore not in the compost. So I think it was to make it more into a plant feed, but is it the right thing to do? I don't know. Is it better to leave it as compost? I think so. Now I'm singing a tune, Bodger and Badger. Indeed, I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to sing. Anna Jones says, I think rock dust is of more use as a clay buster than for nutrients. I don't know. Again, I can only talk about when I've used brick dust, and it worked really well on my allotment. Sorry, in my potted plants. To the point I'm thinking now I'm going to have to find that brick dust and start adding it because it did work really well. What have we got? It was sold as rock dust for gardens, but they did not lie as it was rock dust. Did it work? I think that's the real question. Did it work, and did people talk about their results? As I said, I found with rock. Excuse me. I found with the brick dust, it did produce some interesting results. Jenny says, "Joke mission, Richard sing the tune." Thankfully, that hasn't gone on there because there was no hashtag in the beginning. So there you go. But do be careful, as you could make concrete, like adding sand to clay. No, it never works. Interesting. So why did I find such good results when I used brick dust? Although the Digress says brick dust works as a drainage aid, not to add nutrients. That can make sense. But there was definitely something about it. I guess that would explain why it was used as a replacement for perlite. And it definitely worked. It definitely did work adding brick dust. So do we think that these rock dusts, do you think they actually add mineral content to the soil? Put your yes or no, quite simply. While you answer that, let me talk about what has made me happy or angry this week. In fact, I might go into both. Have I got anything that's made me angry? I'll think about that for a minute. But what's made me happy has been the sun out all week. Not just the weekend, all week. I have been cycling into work this week, which is doing me the world of good. It's been dry all week. It has been absolutely lovely. And I thoroughly enjoy the warm weather because come the weekend, I could cut the grass because I use a battery lawnmower, and the grass, when it's wet, mulches up in the lawnmower. Whereas when it's dry, it's so much easier to cut with my battery lawnmower. So I've been looking forward to having a warm day for that. Also, the other advantage, warm, dry day, I can really get stuck into stuff on the allotment. And that was certainly the case this weekend. I went down the allotment yesterday, planted my potatoes. I hope some of you have been planting your potatoes this week. It's that time of year, but also, what else have I been doing? Mulching and all the usual stuff that we do. It's just been one of those days that I've really been looking forward to getting on the allotment and doing what I need to do. Turbo Stream says no, he's not found any use for it. Stuart says, #mission, make your own fertilizer. That could be what we do next week. Jenny has joined over on Instagram for a change. Digrat says, let's face it, anything works if you believe it does, or if your soil is so poor anyway. Okay, so is it a bad thing to add it to your soil? That's another question I'm going to ask you. Rob says, made me happy, June, going to Malta with a friend for a week. I'm like that when Amanda goes away for a week, I get the house to myself. Stuart says, no, as rock dust would make my soil even heavier. Pannier racks and pannier bags for your bike, Richard. Yes, I know. Not so easy for a mountain bike when I'm going out on the trials like I was doing today. But yeah, I'm looking into it. I have had to use Factor tar in my head this week. Stop the sunburn on the head. Absolutely. Absolutely. A good salesman can sell anything as long as it sounds good. That is true. That's a conversation I've had recently. Yeah. Oh, Jenny's just gone to check Instagram was still alive. And yeah, just checking you are still live on here still. I'll pop back so I can take notes. Yeah. It's weird. Last week it cut out at the hour mark, so still going on quite well. I was given a hand mower for my allotment this week. Perfect for mowing between the beds. Has that made you happy this week? What has made you happy, or what has made you upset this week? I'm trying to think. Has anything made me upset this week? No. I mean, it is hard for me to get upset, but this week has been a really positive week, to say the least. But yeah, what's made you happy and what's made you mad? As a fellow cyclist and as Turbo will back me up, get yourself a helmet, Cam. I was nearly knocked off by a car this week who then went straight over a roundabout and through. Yeah, I've got my GoPro, which I might put on my helmet one day. But at the moment, I'm sort of not on the roads. Digwell says, a red light nearly knocking a bloke off his mobility scooter. Yeah. Yeah. I'm all for being safe on the roads, so yeah, I've got to get all these things as well. But what's made you happy? What has made you upset this week? Anything else? Anything else? I'm trying to think of anything that has made me upset. The only negative thing I found is behind my sheds at the very bottom of my garden, I have 4 water butts. And I have to admit, I often neglect those water butts. I often forget to check on them because they're my backups. They're awkward to get to, so they're like my emergency water. Well, I checked on them today because what was I doing? I was trying to get some pots out to plant some potatoes. And when I was behind there, I noticed that they were actually pretty empty of water. And that was because the downpipe had fallen off. So I quickly popped that back together. And we're hoping that's going to lead to, when we get some rain, it's going to fill those up quite quickly. I was pressure washing. Love it. Oh, right. Saul says he was pressure washing over this week, and that's made him very happy. It's that spring cleanup period, isn't it? Something I spoke about on the podcast tomorrow. It's that spring cleanup period. Turbo Stream says, oh God, some drivers dig well. They would kill you if they thought they could get away with it. Footage has been uploaded to Operation Snap. Yeah. Jenny says, upset as my garden is closed off due to the scaffolding. I've managed to cheer myself up with garden centre trips, seed sowing, and naughty online plant shopping. Excellent, excellent. What else have we got? Stuart says, making me happy this week. Myself and my wife spent 2 days in the garden, making me mad. Potholes costing 2 new tyres. Turbo Stream says, had a few close passes on my bike. I have no shame riding on the pavement when needed. Carefully, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to try eating compost for the first time, Digger. Are your comments coming in late or something? It seems like they're really far behind. What have we got? Equinox today. It is the equinox today. It is with that. Oh, this is weird, isn't it? We're in that period now. We're smack between the shortest day and the longest day. So our days are going to get longer, but then they're going to get shorter again in 3 months' time, just to make everybody even more depressed. But yeah, something to think about. Jenny says, I need a pressure washer. Our north-facing patio gets very slippery. I saw that on Facebook. I have got a pressure washer, but I'm probably a bit too far away for you to borrow it. I've got to get out there and do mine myself. Anyway, shall we go to this week's mission? This is not a brilliant video. I'm going to be honest with you. I was trying to do something a little bit clever, but it didn't quite work. But we'll play it anyway. Because it's a mission.
Okay, so for this week's mission, you want me to show you how to use the Agralian plug plant trainers, something that we discussed last week. These are a great tool that I use quite often. So first of all, we've got the main bit that I filled up with multi-purpose compost, well, seed compost actually. The important thing to remember is that when you fill it up without it being in the tray. Now the tray, you will notice it's got these little poppers on, which when it comes to taking the plants out, you simply push the clips in and it falls down, it pushes all the plug plants out. It's quite a good system. This is what makes these very unique. All we got to do, we just place that on top of the tray. We're not going to push it down just yet. We're just going to wait and see how it goes. And then this is a lid. Now you will notice that we've got little spikes on the lid. That acts as a dibber, but it also has on two sides a gap and on the other two sides no gap. And this is quite an important part of how we get this to work for when it comes to sowing seeds. So all we got to do, push it down into there, and it should, in theory, create, I'm going to try again because it hasn't done that very well, but it should, in theory, create some holes. It sort of has done it. So I'm going to place it back on the tray. And all I'm going to do today is sow some marigold seeds. A brilliant little edible flower, great for companion planting, or one that we use a lot of. Just take a single seed and drop it into that hole. And there we go. That is the last marigold seed sown. So we'll put the rest back in the pot. All we got to do now, place the lid on top. Now I don't want any vents in this, so I'm going to place it correctly so it's unvented. And what that's going to do now, we can place that, hold in the moisture. We place water in the tray. We can place it on a heated mat as well, and eventually they will germinate and we'll get some lovely marigolds out of it. And then when the marigolds are strong enough that we can take them out of the pot, we just push the clips in and out pops the plug plants. Really nice and easy. Great little get, great little piece of kit, really is. They're not that expensive and you can often get them in deals. But I'll show you how they get on once these marigolds have germinated. But for now, is that mission accomplished or mission failed? Don't forget to come up with a mission for next week. But back to the studio.
Indeed, back in the studio. So those Agralian plug plant starters are, well, I've got three of them. One is always sat there as a prop should ever the conversation come up. But they are good pieces of kit, I have to say. If you can get hold of any, they are a good piece of kit. We are at that time where many of us are sowing like mad, lots and lots of different plants, and we need more and more space. These are, I do recommend these particular bits. If you've got any, let me know in the comments what you think of them. Where are we going? Turbo says Equinox is Friday. Dig well, you are late again. I was replying to Jenny's happy moment. Pop it up in the car, Richard. Do be careful of all the dustbin bags on the pavements. Chili Case says happy being on the allotment. Not happy is not having more time for the allotment at the moment. Working long hours and now away from home for the next 2 weekends. You know what? The allotment will be there when you get back. You still have to enjoy your life at the same time. But I'm with you. I'm working long hours and I want to be on the allotment more. We will get there. We will get there. Jenny says, I saved my tomatoes today. I said I was only going to grow 6 varieties as a smaller garden, 26 varieties sown later. As I mix my edibles and ornamentals, I'll squeeze them in for sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Nothing wrong with sowing lots of different plants, is there? Turbo Stream says some poor bloke ended up in a wheelie bin after getting killed by a car dig well, Coventry way, I think. 21st to 22nd of March this year for the equinox. Digwell says, if you do look for second-hand Agralians, buy the grey ones. Excuse me, so much better. Digwell actually sent me a video of the difference between the grey ones and the green ones, and I highlighted it last week with these green ones. So let me switch the camera over, and I'll show you sort of. So on these green ones, we've got these lugs, and I find them actually quite fiddly to get them in and out, as demonstrated right here. In fact, that was almost like well, that was easy. I got that easy by pushing it up from the base. He says, as they both, there we go, got there in the end. The grey ones are a bit easier from what I've seen. The grey ones are a bit easier to do that with from the video Digwell sent me. Again, I've not had any experience with the grey ones. I've only used the green ones, and well, I have to say they work quite well for me. I quite like them. Right, I've just realised we really do need to get these photos up. Let's have a look at your photos, because there is a lot of photos coming in at the moment. It's been a really good week. I think you've all been out in your gardens on your allotments having a look at what's going on, and you've been sharing these photos with us, and I'm very grateful for it. So let's have a look at them. We'll put it on this setup. So first of all, we have got Turbo has harvested his first batch of rhubarb. Also some leeks in that photo I noticed as well. Just realised my spelling mistake in the word rhubarb. Got to say, it's very early for rhubarb. I haven't harvested any rhubarb this early, and I haven't harvested any this year. April is normally when I start to harvest my rhubarb. So yeah, it's just goes to show how early it is. Chili Kate has an update the latest from her allotment site. Now she mentioned at the end of last year they got funding to put a load of hard standing down on the road. Added to that, there was also funding to put in a new shop. And she shared these photos of the hard standing on the road and the new shop. And I've got to say, it looks like money is being well spent. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? Nice and tidy, nice and in keeping. It just looks gorgeous. And I bet everybody is very, very happy with their access to the allotment now. Now, Nathan has had 100% germination on his tomatoes, and there's several varieties that he has grown, as you can see here. Certainly been busy, certainly been very busy with lots of pricking those out, I can imagine. Now, he has also been prepping a bed and has had some lovely tulips in flower, which again, they look lovely as well. And the bed looks good too. Certainly looks like it's ready for lots of vegetables to go in. Now, Gary is really pleased with his leeks, as you can see in this photo, and I don't blame him for being pleased with those leeks either. This time of year, we're heading into that hunger gap, and I think many of us are finding that leeks are really fulfilling that gap. Last year, I sowed several batches of leeks. Normally I just sow in January, but I'm spreading them out, and my ones that I sowed in May really are coming through at this time of year. I'm hoping we're going to not harvest those until May either. So spreading out your leek sowing is a good thing. Now, Kate has spotted this bargain. This looks like it was at a British garden centre. Levington seed compost for £1 a bag. I've got to admit, I haven't gone to a British garden centre since seeing this. I don't think there is a British garden centre that close to me to make it worthwhile. But if I happen to go near one, I'm trying to think where I'm going next week, but if I happen to go near one, I'll find out if we can get any of these. She's also moved some of her plants from the hydroponics, and as you can tell by the roots on these, they are looking fantastic. I'd love to know what plants they are because they do look amazing, absolutely amazing. I think the ones on the left look like rhubarb, but I could be wrong. Now, Lawrence is admiring the pruning on his apple tree. He actually got a gardener in to do this, and he has himself said that he was really quite worried about pruning an apple tree. And this is something I've said for a while. Pruning is something that takes a lot of guts because it seems very counterproductive. But actually, it does make a big, big difference. And this tree looks amazing, doesn't it? It really, really does. It's got that nice little goblet shape that allows for plenty of airflow. Now, Nicola has also been clearing away more from her farm. As you know, she's got a lot of land that she's trying to look after, and she's slowly getting there. Well done. Well done indeed. I would have liked to share more photos, but I just ran out of time to get them all up. So instead of that, please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group. You can send to me via social media or email me, richard@theveggroundpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@theveggroundpodcast.co.uk. So please do share your photos. Did you like those photos? Were they good for you? Would love to see your photos as well. I think everybody really enjoys seeing these photos each week, and I think it gives us a lot of ideas of what you're doing as well as what we could be doing ourselves as well. So yeah, would really love them. What have we got? So Digwell says, cheers, Tobo. I've just given Alexa a bollocking. Apparently Alexa was telling him the wrong day for the equinox. Digwell says those rhubarb are a bit white, a bit OTT with the forcing. PMSL. Of course, I forgot forcing. I haven't forced any rhubarb this year. Alexa, you are a Stuart says, I had to cut off rhubarb flowers today. Does anyone know why this would happen so early? Thanks. My guess is because the rhubarb is stressed. I've seen some of my rhubarb in pots are potting up some flowers. So it might be they're a bit dry, believe it or not. I've noticed the soil on the surface is drying out this weekend, so it might be just a little bit dry, and that might be why it's pulled up a flower. But either way, it's going to be stressed for some reason, and that's why. Kate says, I just can't grow leeks. What goes wrong with your leeks? Tell us more. Tell us more, please. Turbo Stream says it's a new variant of rhubarb, Digwell, leek barb. Did you buy them all, Kate? Talking about the £1 bags of compost. A fair few, she says. Digwell says, Alexa relies on input from users. If someone said 20 seconds and no one has challenged it, then it sticks. I used to do a lot more correcting, but I realized I had more to do with my life. Correcting Alexa. Excellent. Love it. Anna Jones says, great photos. Digwell says, your nearest BGCs are Havant and Lewis. Or Pulborough is probably my nearest, actually. Pulborough's my closest, but if I go to Pulborough, it's too close to my mother's, so I would have to go and see her. The photos were great this week. Indeed, they were. We'd love to see more of them. Please do keep your photos coming in. Hashtag mission, go to a garden centre and see what fruit, veg plants, plugs are available. Have a coffee while you're there and collect their coffee grounds. I do need to go to 2 garden centres next week for various reasons. I'm okay with leeks. Onions cause me trouble, says Turbo Stream. Digwell says some varieties of rhubarb flower freely anyway. No problem. No loss of vitality, etc., etc. Yeah, that is true. That is true. It really depends on what type you have. But my guess would be it's probably the sudden change in weather. We've gone from really quite miserable to some really hot sun, and that's probably stressed out the plants for some reason or another. Right. So if you want to put in a mission or a challenge, I'm going to give you. Oh, this is going to be difficult. We've got 5 minutes left. So if you haven't put it in yet, I'm going to say that's too late. Let's see what is going on, what we have as the missions. Let's see. We've got 2 entries for the missions. Let's hit draw. It's between Stuart and Jenny. Who's going to win? Who's going to win this week on that? It is Jenny, which is go to a garden centre and see what plug plants they have. Okay, I'm going to go to a different garden centre than I went to last time. So that is that for this week. And then for the cook along, I think we have only got one for the cook along. What have we got? There we go. Yeah, just the one draw, which I can't actually see what it is. So you have to remind me what that was and who it was. Whoever it was, you have won. Create a rhubarb dish. That was it. Create a rhubarb dish. Oh, let's remove that. Create a rhubarb dish. That's what it was. So thank you. Digwell says Palmer did not come up as a choice for living in Littlehampton. It's probably the closest out of the ones that I can think of. There we go. Turbo Stream says, do something interesting with rhubarb. It was me. There you go, Turbo. You have won this week. Not that you win anything, but I've got to do something interesting with rhubarb. Don't forget, as Jenny's just reminded me, I keep forgetting to ask you this, and I keep getting told off for this. Please do give us a like. Please do give us a subscribe. Please do give us a follow. Please do give us click the notifications so that you know when we go live. I get told off when I forget it, and I haven't done it lately, so please do that. 2 cook-alongs, both rhubarb. I won, says Turbo Stream. He's happy. So, will I have any rhubarb available is going to be the question. I'll have to see what we can do. But I'm hoping we're going to get some lovely rhubarb this year. What can I do with it? I wonder. I've come up with something, I'm sure. Who tells you off? Facebook and YouTube, believe it or not. I get an email every time I don't do it. I get an email. So next week, I was thinking, what was I thinking that we could discuss? I had an idea, and it's gone out of my brain. Oh, so I was wondering, what's on your next week? I want to discuss what's on your to-do list for Easter weekend. If that sounds like, does that sound like something we're going to make a show out of? Does that sound like something it's going to interest us for an hour and a half? I think it might do. But what do you think? Discuss what we're going to be doing on our Easter weekend, as that's the weekend after. And for many of us, it gives us an extra 2 days off. And I say many because I know there's going to be some people that don't have 2 days off, or it makes no difference to them. But that's what I'm thinking of discussing next week. What's on your to-do list for the Easter weekend? Buy some. This is Digwell. I could buy some rhubarb. Yep, that's definitely an option. Or Turbo Stream says you need to feed your rhubarb, Richard. Absolutely. Jenny says sounds like a great topic. And Easter weekend, eat loads of chocolate egg. Have you seen the price of chocolate eggs? It's like way too expensive to eat those chocolate eggs these days. I'd sooner have a chocolate bar, get more for it, and less expensive. Like 15, 20 quid for Easter eggs at the moment. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to be buying any Easter eggs. Mind you, Easter weekend, we do our annual egg hunt, so I will have to do that, of course. Anyway, it is now 7:30. So I am going to wrap this one up for tonight. This has been an absolute pleasure as always. Been a good discussion, I think, as well about all the feeds and fertilizers. And I think we've had some great ideas, especially for those who are looking to save some money. Hope you've learned something from it. Hope you're taking something away. And we will be back again next week at 6, where we're going to be talking about the to-do list for Easter weekend. Well, guys, you take care. I'll speak to you again then. Until then, please take care.